and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at.
We have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of people that want to build in this city.
The city's new zoning committee chair joins us to discuss his powerful new position and his plans to address the backlog of developments waiting for approval. And the Artemis II mission might be over, but NASA's plans for exploring space are still soaring. A look at what to expect. First off tonight, the FBI is doubling the reward for anyone with information that helps investigators find a man they believe killed or shot and killed an Illinois National Guardsman nearly 5 years ago. The agency says it's now offering $50,000 in the search for 44-year-old Joseph Matos, who's been indicted on federal racketeering charges related to the killing, but remains at large. They believe he's involved in the killing of 19-year-old Chris Carvajal. Carvajal had graduated from National Guard training and was set to be stationed at a military base in Riverside. Carvajal's family originally offered a $25,000 reward, but told WTTW News at the time that detectives collected evidence and witness testimony, but Cook County prosecutors declined to press charges, citing insufficient evidence. An executive order from Governor J.B. Pritzker seeks to limit state employees from using non-public information gained through their job to place bets in the rapidly growing prediction markets. Such markets like Polymarket and Kalshi allow users to bet on anything from sports to policy decisions. The governor's office says they operate with little or no regulatory oversight or safeguards. Thus, under the order, no state employees can use knowledge gained from their official position to participate in the markets or event-based contracts, whether or not they profit. Sharing that information to help others with their betting is also prohibited. The Chicago Bulls are now in the market for a new head coach. Hall of Fame coach Billy Donovan is resigning after 6 years at the helm. He was expected to stay on after a recent front office shakeup, and the organization wanted him to stay. But now the coach has stepped down and let the still-to-be-hired new off-court leadership team pick its own coach. Under Donovan, the Bulls made the playoffs just once and recently traded much of the roster for future draft picks. Bulls CEO Michael Reinsdorf thanked Donovan for his service with the team and blamed the roster construction for the team's struggles, not the coaching. Up next, we meet the new leader of City Council's powerful zoning committee. He joins us right after this.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
It's considered one of the most powerful positions in City Hall. After months without a permanent leader, City Council's Committee on Zoning, Landmarks, and Building Standards finally has a new chair. 36th Ward Alderman Gilbert Villegas will lead the committee, putting him at the center of decisions that shape everything from neighborhood housing to billion-dollar developments. Joining us now is the newly appointed Zoning Committee Chair, 36th Ward Alderman Gilbert Villegas, who represents parts of the Northwest Side like Belmont-Cragen, Hermosa, and Humboldt Park. Welcome back, Alderman. Congrats on the new position.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Brandis, for having me back.
So you're stepping into the role. It's been months of stalled meetings. More than 100 proposals are still in limbo. What's your plan to work through that backlog?
Well, we've already hit the ground running. We've already scheduled 2 meetings for next month, one on May 6th, where we'll hear about 85 to 90% of those projects. And my intention is to have a long meeting on that day in order to get these projects approved so that way we can get people to working. Then on May 19th, we'll have another meeting that will deal with some of the rollover projects as well as some text amendment on ordinances that need to be moved. But yeah, we need to get things moving. People are ready to get to work. This is construction season. Unfortunately, we don't enjoy the same weather as California and Florida, and so we have a compressed construction season, and so we want to make sure that we're getting people working.
Why did you want this position?
Well, look, this is something that I've been in the construction industry my whole professional career. I was a deputy director with the Department of Transportation. I ran a not-for-profit trade association where we advocated for infrastructure down in Springfield and D.C., and then also I was the chief of staff of what's called the Capital Development Board, which is an agency that does, a state agency that does all the vertical construction in the state of Illinois. So in essence, it was the construction manager. I led the Economic Capital and Technology Development Committee as well as a chairman for the last 6 years, and capital being part of the infrastructure. So again, I know how to get things done and looking forward to getting them done for our colleagues in the city.
Like an extension of work that you've previously done.
Yeah.
Are there specific types of projects, affordable housing, transit-oriented, neighborhood revitalization, that you plan to prioritize first once you get going?
Yeah, so we're gonna be talking with all our colleagues to kind of find out what their priorities are. We want to make sure that we're addressing the housing shortage that's there. One of the big issues that we're seeing around supply and demand is just predictability of how we can get projects completed. And so one of the key things I want to do is meet with both the developers on the outside, attorneys, as well as the internal government employees to figure out, like, what is it that we need to do in order to speed up projects. This is the perfect department to overlay the technology on, so that way there's predictability. I would imagine having each project having its own dashboard where those folks and all those stakeholders have an opportunity to look at that dashboard to find out where they're at in the process. Again, this is right for technology because already we have tons of boxes of paper. And in 2026, we got to get rid of the paper, especially specifically around this committee.
Your previous leading role, the Economic Capital and Technology Development Committee, that's been handed off to Alderman Derek Curtis. Now, part of the deal that put you in the chair was the support of the Black Caucus so that one of their members could take over there. What does that say to you about the role of race and sort of politicking, deal cutting in Chicago politics?
Well, I think we need to take a look at this as well. I think that both Derek and I started in 2015, so we're in our third term. And what we didn't want to do is set a precedence around allowing freshmen the ability to have powerful committees like zoning. And so I think that—
And you're referring to Alderman Lawson, who had been in the role interim.
Which he did a great job during his tenure there, and he's the vice chair of the committee. So we're both going to work collectively to make sure that we get projects completed in the city of Chicago. But here was an opportunity to promote a colleague of mine who's in his third term as well. And we looked at it and did the roll calls, and we thought that was the best path forward. As a result of that, my committee, my staff is going to be helping Derek as well to get his footings around that committee. But we want to make sure that we're both going to be successful. He's in charge of economic capital and technology with infrastructure, which is called the Capital Improvement Plan. That's in that committee, and then I'll be with zoning. And so we're going to be doing a bunch of construction in the city of Chicago.
There's also the little issue of aldermanic prerogative. Do you plan on honoring this decades-old tradition of aldermanic prerogative that gives alder people the final authority over the housing developments in their wards?
Well, I think so I'm going to be setting up some meetings with CMAP as well as MPC, so that's Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning, as well as the Metropolitan Planning Council. I want to get some information around planning, but what I see around aldermanic prerogative is more about educating people. What we see is that once people talk about affordable housing, so there are people out there that say, oh, we don't want that in here, not understanding what affordable housing means. Listen, I grew up in Lathrop Homes, which is Chicago Housing Authority, and as a result of that, again, living in public housing gave me a different view around what working people and how they're struggling, and we want to make sure that we're addressing every one of the affordability issue. So we're going to be talking about affordable housing, market rate, all types of development. But what I really want to focus on is making sure that we have the ability to get things done quicker. The fact that we're taking months, in some cases years, to get projects approved is really what's leading to the affordability issue. There's not enough supply, and as a result of that, prices are high.
You know, we talk about affordability and who's impacted by the lack of affordability a lot, because there's been the finding by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development under former President Joe Biden that found that aldermanic prerogative fuels segregation in Chicago, violating civil rights of Black and Latino residents by limiting the creation of affordable housing. How do you square aldermanic prerogative with that?
Well, again, it's about education. It's about having a discussion. That's why I want to bring in the subject matter experts around planning, to figure out how we can educate my colleagues, but also the public around what affordable housing is. It has a negative connotation right now. And it's really frustrating because when you take a look at what 60% of median household income is in some communities, in some cases it's $60,000 for a family of two. And when we think about that, I mean, that's a little bit more than, that's maybe $30 an hour that someone's making, right? So we need to stop this whole negative stigma around affordable housing and educate people what affordable housing really means.
On that note, Chicago continues to face a housing shortage. How can the zoning committee be used as a tool to fix the affordable housing crisis, in addition to what you just named?
Yeah, look, I see the zoning committee as an economic development committee as well. So we're going to have the ability to spur economic development. But what's really causing the affordability issue is supply and demand. And what we need to do is make sure that we're getting projects done quicker. I keep emphasizing technology because of the fact that government has been real slow to get on board with technology. Think about the fact that right now you could order groceries, track it on your phone, have a photo of it being delivered, but yet if you get into the system, the building system, and to submit a permit, you can't track it. You're having to call people, you're having to send emails to figure out where things are at, and again, just no transparency. So my goal is to really focus on cutting the red tape, getting projects completed quicker, allow for predictability and more transparency.
There's also major projects like the 78, Quantum, Bally's Casino, all in the works, facing delays, public scrutiny. What role do you plan on playing to move large-scale developments like that, but while also ensuring community needs are taken into account?
Absolutely. So working closely with those aldermen and women that represent those areas. Listen, we approved Quantum through my committee as well. The Foundry, which is the previous Lincoln Yards, the 78 with the stadium. I mean, these are all projects that have been approved by the City Council. We're excited about that. Those are the projects that we need. Now imagine these are large-scale projects that people that said, hey, we want to invest in Chicago. But we also are hearing from people that are a little bullish on Chicago because of the fact that, a little bearish on Chicago because of the fact that they just don't know what's going on there. So what we want to do is signal, no, Chicago's open for business. We want to allow them to invest in the city, but then also do it in a way where, again, there's predictability about when these projects are going to take ground.
Quickly, before we let you go, you've previously been at odds with the mayor over issues like the budget, corporate head tax that he proposed. How do you plan on working with Mayor Johnson as well as the rest of City Council? Well,
listen, anytime the City Council is standing up and not being a rubber stamp, it's good for taxpayers. It's good for Chicagoans. We're elected just like the mayor. We have opinions, and we should be able to voice those opinions. So whenever the mayor has something that we can collaborate on, looking forward to collaborating. But if he's putting something forward and a bunch of us are not really accepting, or we think there's a different opportunity to get it done, we're gonna make those opinions.
All right, brand new zoning committee chair and 36th Ward Alderman Gilbert Villegas. Thanks for joining us.
I appreciate it.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Up next, out of this world plans with a look at some of NASA's upcoming projects and missions. Stay with us. A new era of space exploration is underway. Scientists, space enthusiasts, and general skywatchers were delighted earlier this month as 4 astronauts spent 10 days on a trip around the moon before splashing down in the Pacific Ocean. But the end of the Artemis II mission is just the beginning for NASA's other goals, like building a moon base to studying faraway galaxies. Joining us now are Hunter Miller, a public observing educator at the Adler Planetarium, Charles Mudd, principal attorney at Mudd Law, who specializes in space law. It is a thing. And Allison Strom, professor of physics and astronomy at Northwestern University, and probably the coolest title, space lawyer. Thanks to everyone for joining us. We appreciate you. Hunter Miller, tell us about the Artemis II mission. What did that accomplish?
Yeah, so the goal of the Artemis II mission, these are really very iterative missions that are all building towards a big future goal. So this was the first test of the Space Launch System in the Orion spacecraft with humans inside. So that was a really big step to take to move us towards and project us towards future missions, including landing astronauts on the moon.
What are the plans for Artemis 3, 4, and beyond?
Yeah, so this has changed a little bit recently. So Artemis 3 is now planned as another test mission that will be staying in Earth orbit rather than venturing to the moon. This will allow them to have some further tests with docking with lunar landing modules being created by private corporations today. So that is a test that they felt was very important, an additional step that they wanted to add to this project, with Artemis 4 being the full-on return to the moon, land astronauts on the lunar surface, and that is currently being projected for as recent as 2028, very soon.
That feels like a tight timeline, like back to, I mean, just to my unscientific mind, like coming up in a couple of years, basically.
It is absolutely soon, but you know, when you have things like Artemis 2 that have launched, they're using very similar technology to return to the moon itself. So, you know, it is a tight timeline. We'll see if they can pull it off. There's a lot of moving parts for these missions, but they always like to project, you know, their most positive outlooks, see what we can do, and I'm hopeful that they're gonna push to get us there soon.
Thank you. Charles, what does international law say about what a country can do on the moon or anywhere in space?
Well, one of the most interesting things is that the moon and other celestial bodies, as the terms happen to be in the Outer Space Treaty and other documents, are the province of all humankind. So no country, no party can claim ownership to a particular area of land of the moon. What's interesting, though, the Moon Agreement, which was the last of the 5 treaties, space treaties, was 1984, and the United States is not a party to the Moon Agreement. And one of the main reasons for that is that the Moon Agreement went beyond the Outer Space Treaty and said that nobody could own minerals or anything mined or extracted from the moon or celestial bodies. And there are actually 4 countries, the US, Japan, UAE, and Luxembourg, that have laws contrary to the Moon Agreement and saying, yes, we can own things that we mine. And that is one of the future projects to mine from asteroids.
What is the U.S. and maybe some of those other countries, what's the country's rationale for disagreeing with all the other countries that, that have signed on to this?
And I'll clarify one point, in that most countries are not on the Moon Agreement. I think there's probably less than 30 countries that are actually signed on to the Moon Agreement. And in comparison, really quickly, the Artemis Accords that the U.S. has put forward has 62 countries now, Latvia being actually signing on yesterday.
Welcome, Latvia. Allison, you are working on the early stages of a project with NASA that'll look at potentially habitable worlds. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a really exciting time for NASA science as well as space exploration. And people are undoubtedly familiar with Hubble Space Telescope, James Webb Space Telescope, Roman, which will be launching in September. But the one you're referring to is called Habitable Worlds Observatory. It'll be the next big NASA flagship. And the idea here is to build essentially a super Hubble. So it'll be bigger than JWST, but it'll look at UV wavelengths like Hubble does and into the optical. And so it'll let us look at Earth-like planets around sun-like stars really for the first time and assess whether or not they're habitable. So it'll answer, really for the first time, this pressing question that we have: are we alone in the universe?
Are we alone in the universe? Can we move to another planet if we mess this one up?
There is no planet B, but I think it's a, you know, it's an age-old question for humanity, I think, and one that has eluded us because it's so technically challenging. It requires an ultra-stable telescope and a lot of technology that we're still developing. So there's actually a lot of crossover between things in sort of aerospace engineering and building these sort of next generation facilities like Habitable Worlds Observatory.
You mentioned the James Webb Space Telescope, already out in space. What
Yes.
are scientists learning from that project?
Oh gosh, it's really been you know, such a transformational facility and the world's best Christmas gift, right? It launched on Christmas morning. So I would say, like, the most interesting thing that we've learned is that everything is happening a lot earlier than we expected. When we look at the very first galaxies, we see that they're a lot more mature than we expected. So it's like looking back and expecting to see, you know, infants and seeing toddlers instead. And what we want to understand is what's driving this. Why are galaxies forming so quickly? And maybe this will help us understand, for example, the origin of our own galaxy, the Milky Way.
Hunter, how is NASA working with private companies as they work towards possibly building a moon base?
So the role of private companies is going to take a few different roles along the process. So the first step is going to be in these future Artemis missions, where they will be building components that will be used for landing astronauts on the lunar surface. But looking ahead to the NASA's plan for an extended moon base, extended time on the moon for astronauts, that will require many more landings, many more launches than NASA is capable of achieving by themselves, just to get the materials required to construct these bases on the moon. So that is where private companies will really become very essential, is in delivering these payloads to the lunar surface so that astronauts can go live on these bases and learn more about the moon.
Are there any ever any criticisms, concerns, conflicts about, sort of the private involvement in what, until the last 10, 20 years has for the most part been sort of a government effort, right? Like, wasn't the original, like back during the space age, that was all NASA?
Yeah,
right?
It is a little bit of a new thing,
Yeah.
but I'll also say that, another thing that they're really pushing for with, the Artemis project is international cooperation as well. This is really a mission for the entire world. It is something that can only be accomplished with that cooperation, because these are much more challenging goals than we have ever accomplished in space exploration in the past. So I think it really just comes down to requiring the help of a lot of different folks to make these really big, lofty goals possible. And I think that really showcases why we are choosing to return to the moon now, over 50 years after, the last time we landed humans on the moon.
All hands on deck.
Exactly.
Everybody in. Everybody in. Charles, what are the legal questions, though, that pop up as private companies start to build a presence in space as well?
Well, one of the legal questions is, are companies under the same set of rules? For example, jurisdictionally, if somebody launches a satellite, are they subject to the laws here on the United States? And they are. It's very clear that even under the Outer Space Treaty, that the countries from which a rocket or any object happens to be launched controls that launch. And if a U.S. company, for example, launches a satellite, then that company and the satellite's operations are still subject to United States law. And that needs to be very clear, because there's a limited amount of space. Even though it's big, there's a limited amount of space in the various altitudes in, let's say, low Earth orbit. So we need to make sure that the laws apply and that the countries, the companies know that, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. I'm following. So then there's the president's budget request for NASA in 2027. It would increase funding for space exploration, but cut funding for science by 46% and cutting the total agency by 23%. Allison, what might the U.S. lose if these cuts are approved?
So I think it is very concerning. Obviously, I understand the desire to have a balanced budget, but the science portfolio of NASA has given us, I think, some of the most amazing discoveries about our place in the universe over the last 30 years. And it has helped the United States be leaders in astronomy and space science. So we would lose a variety of telescopes. I mean, we are familiar with the big names, but all of the telescopes, there are dozens that work together to help us answer questions about stars, planets, and galaxies. And ultimately, what we would lose is the ability to train future generations of scientists. Most of the NASA money, in addition to supporting missions, goes towards training scientists, training students, doing public outreach, and all of that would be in jeopardy. Astrophysics in particular is actually slated to be cut by 65%, and I don't know what you're supposed to do with a third of the budget that you expected to have.
Certainly not meet these lofty goals that we've been talking about.
Certainly not scientifically, no. Fortunately, Congress and I think most Americans are fully in support of supporting both science and space exploration. And I did a quick calculation earlier. I think the whole budget of NASA, science plus space exploration, works out to like 1 coffee per month per American. And I think that's a pretty good deal.
Okay. Coffee for everybody. No. Charles, can investments in NASA, how do those spur commercial innovation?
Well, NASA is kind of the impetus for all of the companies and everything that's come in the United States. They kind of stem from the research and the investment that's been made in NASA. And I think that continued cooperation is necessary. And SpaceX has had a huge part of working with NASA to provide launches and actually move away from a time where the U.S. had to rely on Russia to launch. So there has been a commercial public-private partnership, and I think that's going to continue into the future.
Hunter, a couple of seconds left. Whether it's the moon, faraway galaxies, why do you think it's important to study space?
You know, I think there's a lot of reasons that it's important. There's, of course, the science benefits that you get out of exploring space, not just in the understanding of what our place in the universe, but also it results in tons of other discoveries that are very useful in our day-to-day life, right? But I think another element that's really important to me is the wonder that exploring space brings about. I see that on people's faces every day at my work, and that's something that I think space can provide that's really special.
And WD-40. Came out of the space race. Okay.
Velcro.
All right. Velcro. Okay. We'll have to leave it there. Hunter Miller, Charles Mudd, Allison Strom, thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that is our show for this Tuesday night. Stay connected with our reporters and what they're working on by following us on Instagram at WTTW Chicago. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm with more than 40 years of experience in medical malpractice.